Hello everyone, this is Lincoln, the channel for Higher Self. Welcome to the Satsang with the Self. In these channel Higher Self videos, I bring through information from a higher self state of consciousness. You are a multi-dimensional being, and a greater part of yourself exists beyond this human reality. You cannot see this part of yourself, but you can access it within your own consciousness. Your higher self shows up as an inner knowing that guides you, and we feel this knowing from our spiritual heart. We can learn to work with this inner knowing and actually develop it into a type of clairvoyant communication. We can learn how to perceive this communication, either as images in our mind's eye, or also clairaudiently as hearing communication happening within our mind. The higher self is the greater intelligence within you. It's the more of you that you already are, especially when you expand yourself into a state of divine unity. The more you ascend yourself, the more you realize the perfect knowledge that you have, and that is what the higher self is. In these teachings, I offer you the perspective of this greater consciousness as it flows through myself. And for those of you who can feel vibration, you may also notice the vibration of the higher self coming through. In these teachings, sometimes I bring through knowledge based upon what's requested of me from my audience members, and that's what I'm going to do here today. This audience member is a student of mine, and he's been a student for a long time. And he understands that the higher self mentions that suffering is an important part of our human experience. And it's through suffering that we learn and grow into a greater state of awakening. He would like the higher self to expand upon this concept and in very specific ways address what is it that suffering teaches us. If suffering is an important part of this human experience, what specifically are we here to learn from this? And why is suffering necessary? Can't these soul-level lessons be gained any other way? He would also like us to address the importance of repeated states of suffering, like when we get stuck in a pattern of conditioning or stuck in a series of experiences that continue to cause us suffering. Why do we have to repeat these experiences? Why can't a soul just jump into the realization the first time it has suffering? So we're going to bring this question or series of questions up to the higher self level, and we're going to see what is coming through us in this channeling. I hope that you enjoy today's communication. Dear one, close your eyes. Feel your spiritual heart. Be at peace. Relax into this feeling. As you sense this quality of energy, understand that you are connecting to your own higher self. You are more than this physical body. You are more than your human knowledge. Feel your heart and allow the awakening within you. Allow this energy to grow. In every moment you are shining as awareness, intelligence, and creative power. In every moment, you are here, creating this experience of living. You are shining yourself into existence, and your spiritual heart is at the center. Feel yourself as this radiant consciousness, as a soul shining itself into experience. Feel your heart light. Feel your heart love. Be this sacred state. You, dear one, are the creation of love. As you feel your heart, you feel yourself expressing into the present moment. Even simply being here as a witness contains a feeling of yourself shining. Simply being present is the radiance of your heart. Feel your heart's energy. Feel this sacred vibration. The love and light of Source flows through you, arises at your center, and expands to create your human expression, your human intelligence, your human emotion, all of your thoughts, all of your brain power and your sensory information. All of this is a creation from your spiritual heart. You shine here at your center. You shine here to create this human experience. This is your truth. This is who you are. As you feel your heart, you remember this. Remembering who you are is your awakening. Now, here, let us speak together. Continue feeling your heart while you listen to our words. If you, dear ones, take the time to reflect upon the meditation we have just guided you upon, you would find that the answer to your questions has already been given. We'd like for you to do this. Take some time. Notice the state you are in. Try to recall the teaching. For those of you watching the recording, even play the recording again. You see, dear one, you are the creation of God's love. The energy of the Source consciousness is blissful love. This is the experience of oneness. The creative energy itself is a feeling of happiness. Source consciousness, we call it God. God consciousness desired to give itself an experience, and all desires are happiness. being experienced. So God consciousness wanted to create existence, and that would fulfill this desire. That would be a pleasing experience for God. And so the energy of life is a happy feeling. God desired to know itself, and that's a joyous celebration. So of course the energy of life would be a joyous feeling. When we look, dear one, at the spiritual heart, we realize this is the gift of life that I've been given. From a soul level perspective, the source is creating me from this divine place. And God's love, God's energy, it feels blissful. I'm the creation of this blissful feeling. And then as I notice more fully the energy of my heart, I realize that this energy becomes my expression. When I feel my heart, I feel like I love expressing creation. I love participating in this experience. I love speaking, I love thinking, I love problem solving. I love exchanging emotion. I love observing my environment. When you're in the energy of your heart, you realize that all of your expression feels like love. Why do we suffer? If the energy creating us is blissful love, and if our own expression is blissful love, then where do we find this suffering? Where does it appear and why is it needed? Please understand, dear ones, in order for creation to occur, there must be different forms arising. If everything was the same one thing, the entire universe would just be a single light. And this reality does exist as the first dimension of experience. When God consciousness first created, it created everything as one. It appeared as one. There was no difference and no distance, no space, no separation, no individual forms. There was only one. And it appeared as a single dimension of everything. Everything was being one and the same experience. It's all white light. It's all one feeling. It's all one vibration. And then God wanted to create more. God had a desire to create more. God poured more love into life, into existence. And so the one became two. And the one and the two reflected upon each other, which allowed them to reflect upon themselves existing. When you perceive something else in that moment, you also know that you're existing. And so, twice as much blissful happiness then appeared. At first, everything was one, so there was one state of blissful happiness. And then the source divided everything into two. The two witnessed each other, and in doing so, recognized their own individuality. And now there are two states of blissful existence. And then God consciousness wanted more. So the two split themselves again. And onward, the division and the multiplication of blissful experience occurred. With every new soul, more bliss is added because it's another perspective from which to view the totality of life. God consciousness appears divided, but really it's not. The infinite, unlimited power of God is simply creating a unique reality. Never is God reduced within this universe, and never is God expanded within this universe. It's always the all that is having an experience. Now, through the multiplication of form, there's also an addition of new perspectives. Now God is perceiving itself in a new way, so that reality is a new creation of bliss. So the universe continues to multiply itself, not just as forms of life, but also perspectives of life. The universe is eternal, so there's an infinite amount of space and time. There's an infinite amount of forms within space and time. And there's also an infinite amount of perspectives within the forms within space and time. The universe is existing in an unlimited way. There are infinite perspectives of bliss. So that's what God is doing, and that's the truth of everything. So for God to know itself, it has to create different expressions of itself. And then for God to experience reality even further, it has to play a game of hide and seek. Essentially, dear one, if all these individual forms of consciousness, all these souls, knew themselves to all be God, if they all had God realization and they always stayed in the God realized experience, then each and every one would be having the same complete state of blissful oneness. They would have individual perception because never is the universe reduced by the appearance of infinite forms. It's always one self. It just appears as different selves. With the understanding it's all one self, there's the energy of one self, which is the blissful feeling. The understanding you have determines the emotional vibration you feel. When you understand everything to be one self, then you experience the bliss of oneness. Now, for most human beings, we can step into the knowledge that everything is one self, but at the same moment we're having that knowledge, we're also continuing to express all the other pieces of knowledge we have. Like I'm human and I have brown hair and brown eyes, or blonde hair and blue eyes, whatever it might be. And so even when human incarnate souls remember their God realization, they are still experiencing a variety of human constructs. Therefore, their entire emotional experience has bliss added into all of their human knowledge. This is why when you are in a human reality and have divine realization, it's not a pure and complete experience of that unity state. You're still perceiving the body, you're still perceiving the world, so the understanding, I am a human body, and this is what the world means to me, are still present. If you go deeper into meditation, the forms of human reality can vanish, your consciousness can dominate your experience, and you can take yourself into a complete perception of the oneness. Then there's no other conflict within yourself, no other different ideas being felt as vibration. Then you experience a dimension of pure white light. In this reality, God consciousness is existing as infinite forms with infinite perspectives, and the understanding they have determines the vibration they feel. When they're in the understanding that everything is God, everything is one self, and I am that God self, then there is infinite bliss being felt within my perspective. Now, God wanted more than this. God wanted to experience all possibilities. So God created a game of hide and seek, as you call it in this human world. God decided to hide its wisdom from itself. God is still perceiving the infinite reality and the infinite potential of creation, infinite forms, infinite perspectives. It's all right here. But God has hidden the unity understanding from itself. And in doing so, God allows itself to experience a brand new range of vibration. When everything is known as God, there's one experience of feeling. But now that God has created a different understanding, choosing to hide its knowledge from itself, now God enters into a new emotion. And this opens up a whole range of different experiences within this infinite universe. Source consciousness is experiencing itself as you, and as you, and as you, and as you, and as all of life everywhere. And it's desiring an infinite amount of experience. So it creates complexities within all of its parts of form, including the emotional part. The way we change emotion is to change our understanding. So the understanding that all is one becomes hidden. And the soul dives into an experience of life that then contains reductions from the blissful all that is. As soon as the blissful oneness is reduced, you have what we call suffering. Anytime we are not having the fullest understanding, we are experiencing some degree of personal unhappiness. Unhappiness is suffering. Now, for all of you, dear ones, you remember ranges of happiness, and you have a measuring stick in your mind. And so all of you have chosen a point along this spectrum of emotion that you've all felt. And you refer to this one point, this one location, as your normal emotional state. Now, what we call normal is different for each and every one of us because we've all had different experiences within form. We all have different experiences, we all have different knowledge, and therefore we all have different points of reference. What's normal for you is not normal for anyone else. There are infinite vibrations. We all have our own realities. What's normal for myself is normal for myself, and your norm and everyone else's normal is going to be something different. We all choose a position, and we call it normal, so that we then can communicate about our experience. And everything to the higher vibrational side of normal we call greater happiness. Everything to the lower vibrational side of normal we call greater suffering. Once we establish a point of reference, then we can label good and bad, happy and unhappy, desirable and undesirable. So suffering for you depends upon where you place your idea of normal. And that position and the definition of suffering will be different for each and every soul existing. Here you are as a human being, drawing your own lines because you're building your emotions from your own knowledge. Anytime you reduce the perfect knowledge, you reduce the perfect feeling. You reduce the blissful oneness. Anytime you don't have perfect knowledge, we call that a state of ignorance. Having knowledge and not having knowledge. Right? To have knowledge, you know, you are wise. To not have knowledge, you are ignorant, you are foolish, you do not understand. Every soul in existence is experiencing somewhere along the range of this spectrum. Just like our emotions vary between blissful oneness and states of suffering, so too does our knowledge vary from knowing everything to knowing nothing. We move from wisdom to ignorance. The challenge we have in the human world is we're always resisting that which is on the lower vibrational side of the middle point we've drawn. But that, dear one, is also a reflection of our own limited understanding. If we learn the design of life, we realize we don't have to draw a line. We don't have to get consumed by labeling and analyzing. Of course, we're going to have to communicate our experiences to one another, but we don't have to continue to communicate them to ourselves. Most human beings get stuck in emotional patterns because they keep focusing on the emotions they don't like. They keep thinking about them and complaining about them and wishing they weren't happen, but the whole time their mind is doing this, their awareness is focused upon that lower vibrational state. The reason why human beings stay in suffering and continue to repeat states of suffering is because they continue to focus upon these limited ideas and the limited emotions associated with that limited idea. If you think the same story in your mind and you keep focusing on it, you're going to make similar choices. Each and every day, you're going to make similar choices. You're going to find yourself in similar experiences, and you're going to have similar emotional responses. You're going to repeat the same patterns over and over and over again, simply because you're focusing on the same thoughts. Wisdom shows us to let go of something, we have to stop focusing on it. It can still exist, we just learn to not place our attention over there. And we put it over here, we put it somewhere else. You exist, dear ones, in an infinite universe, with every idea and every vibration, with every possibility of experience. And what you choose to focus your consciousness upon, you channel your spiritual heart energy into, and you create more of it. This creative process you observe happening moment after moment after moment. When you focus on something, in that moment your energy is going towards that thing, and you interact with that object. And as long as you desire that thing, or you desire something the thing can become, you stay focused on that thing, and you keep channeling your energy into it. Now you create another moment with it, and another moment with it, and another moment. You create more of it. While you're creating more of it, you're interacting with it. So you're building your understanding of it. And if you desire to change it, you're also affecting change in it. You're the creator. And what you focus on, you channel your energy towards. If you desire it the way it is, then you just witness it. If you desire it to be different, then you act upon it and change it. The more you know yourself as a creator, the more you masterfully control your focus, and the more you empower this strength of desire. Your desire is a word that we use to refer to what you are creating. If you love what you're perceiving, you desire to perceive it the way it is. And so you keep creating that experience moment after moment after moment. But if you desire to change something, then you keep focusing on it because you want to see it change. And you also express onto it that which will change it. Desire is another word for your creative energy. In every moment, that which you focus on receives you as the creator. And if you want it to change, you start changing it. The more you know you're the creator, the more power you put into it, the more you start changing it. Remember, dear ones, that you're a soul. You're a perspective inside of eternity and infinity combined. And you are choosing, because you desire it, to create yourself in this human reality. And the experiences that you're desiring are experiences you're creating for your human body. Your soul wants to give your body the experience of living in a home, or the experience of making love, or the experience of learning something new. You're giving this to your body. And your body is having this experience within this world. If you want your body to feel the bliss and joy of making love to someone, then you take your body on that journey. And in order to find this romantic partner, you have to build that experience, because God consciousness is within all other forms as well. So the person you want to experience this lovemaking with is another soul just like you. And they're having desire as well. But they may not desire the same thing you desire. They may not desire an experience with you, or an experience like the one you're wanting to have. It's a very dynamic, creative universe as God experiences itself from infinite perspectives. We are always desiring higher states of vibration. Built into us is a movement towards greater vibration, whether it's knowledge or emotional feeling. and also a movement away from lower vibration as knowledge and emotional feeling. We get stuck repeating lower vibrational states because we don't recognize who we are as creators. And then we stay focused on what we don't want. And we keep thinking about it and looking at it and talking about it with all of our friends and family. Instead of changing your mind's understanding and creating different feelings and different behaviors, you recreate the old patterns. And the more you tell people this is who you are, the more they will treat you like that idea. And so you're reinforcing these ideas by sharing them with the minds of other souls. If you tell them you're this person, they're going to believe you're this person, and they're going to act to you like you are this person. And that's going to reinforce your understanding, oh, I am this person, but I don't want to be this person if you focus on sharing your problems. Please understand, we're not telling you to avoid your problems. You're going to have to work with your problems because you have to evolve yourself to a higher understanding. We're not telling you pretend they don't exist and avoid them. That's a recipe for disaster because that again is a behavior built on ignorance. We are telling you, be skillful. Don't build an identity in the story of your mind with ideas that you do not want to have. And don't go around the world telling people you are this person that you don't want to be. Instead, dear ones, go within yourself and discover who are you truly. And learn to cultivate the ideas and the emotions that build the personality that brings you joy. We get stuck in patterns because we don't understand the design of life, because that's also something we're awakening to. But the way we awaken is simply observing what is happening. The biggest challenge that human beings have within this personal reality is trusting themselves. You see, trust is a root chakra experience, so it's a foundational aspect of your human journey. It's a foundational part of who you are as a human being. When you learn to trust yourself, it doesn't mean your ideas are always right. It means that you allow yourself to participate with life. When you trust yourself, you let yourself express, you let yourself perceive, you let yourself learn. When you trust yourself, you also at the same time automatically are trusting the design of life. You are a part of the design of life. When you observe life, you learn about life. You think about life, and then you trust how you think about what you're trusting in the world. You're building trust everywhere when you allow this creation to happen. As human beings, we've been taught you cannot trust your own understanding. We're taught you can't trust how you think and feel. You're taught to always question it and always doubt it. And the reason why this has happened is because you've been educated in this way. You've been taught there are right and there are wrong answers. And we're going to tell you which one is which. Now, if we look at mathematics, of course, we can say, yeah, there's right and wrong answers. Look at biology, there's right and wrong answers. Look at the definition of words, there's right and wrong answers. But if we look at human behavior, where do we draw the line of right and wrong? If we look at human preference, human desire, human beliefs, where do we draw the line between right and wrong? Some of you would say, if you tell me what to believe, then you're trying to control me. That's different than telling someone that 1 + 1 = 2 and 1 + 1 = 3 is wrong. So certain areas of our reality, we've created constructive communication and agree upon things and say, yes, for the purpose of communication, it has to be this way. But then other areas we say are open to human experience. You can define what you like as your favorite tastes and colors and smells. You can define who you are as a human being and how you speak and move around the world. But certain parts of this human structure have to be agreed upon so there can be cooperation. If we start disagreeing about certain things, then human communication breaks down. So in this world, dear one, you're taught that certain things are true and certain things are not true. And unfortunately, part of this has been built into our feelings of love. People are rewarded with happiness and love, appreciation, all these emotional exchanges, if they get the answer correct. So if I say 1 + 1 = 2, then I get more love from the people around me who celebrate my mathematics. If I say 1 + 1 = 3 and that's a wrong answer, then I feel rejected and shamed. Instead of just understanding its information and it has no emotional value, we do the opposite. We give it an emotional value because we compete for our resources. We compete for the resources, so the smartest one gets rewarded the most. The fastest one, the tallest one, the most beautiful one, whatever it might be, they get rewarded the most. But the challenge is it creates all this emotional entanglement. Now we're giving you just a very simplistic explanation of a very deep concept, but we don't want to shift our focus there. The bottom line, dear ones, is you have learned through emotional manipulation to not trust your own understanding. And it's gotten worse in the modern day world. It's gotten more challenging for the younger generations as you're encouraged to not have your own beliefs, to not have your own ideas, and as you're taught about confusion. Yesterday you were taught 1 + 1 = 2. Today you're taught, no, 1 + 1 = 4. And you say, but I thought 1 + 1 = 2. And they say, well, yesterday it did, but today it's 4. And then the next day they change it back to 2. And the day after that they change it to 5. The day after that they change it to 6. When we, dear one, continue to disrupt the foundation of communication and the understanding of life, we cause confusion, and this creates a psychological paralysis. The end result is people do not know how to trust their own thinking. And if you look at the modern day world, this is systematically being done to our children. It's systematically being done to the adults as well. The things that we thought were true, we're being told they're not true anymore. And we look around the world and we say, well, how can this be? And then we're being taught to feel ashamed of the old ideas we were taught and to feel praise for the new ideas we were taught. But then they twist it around again the following day. It's this constant changing that causes the conflict. We have to understand that all of these words and all these ideas are just agreed upon ways to communicate about a shared experience. It's not truth, it's just words and communication. And the purpose of communication is so different creators can join together. There's no one right answer. There's no one right way to be. You're free to explore your reality any way you wish. But for cooperation to happen, there must be an agreement. For society to work together, there must be an agreement upon how society will function. For language to work, there must be an agreement upon words. The biggest challenge mankind has right now is trusting themselves. Trusting how their mind works. Because the way you use your mind determines your emotions. And if you're confused, you will suffer. So, why do we experience suffering? Because we have ignorance. We don't understand the design of life. How do we get out of suffering? We build knowledge about the way things are. How do we build this knowledge? By direct experience. By observing what's happening and by developing our own understanding. We remove ourselves from suffering by discovering who we are as creators of knowledge. As we create knowledge, we create higher states of vibration. Eventually, the levels of knowledge ascend to the realization of who I am as a soul. And as that happens, the vibrations of emotion ascend back towards that blissful oneness. We'll say this again because it ties it all together and it's so important. There is suffering. Suffering is ignorance. When we understand everything to be one and the same, we experience unity bliss. We have hidden ourselves as God consciousness into a world of different forms in order to create different vibrations of feeling. We've hidden the knowledge of what this is. Automatically, we desire higher vibration and wish to avoid lower vibration. Lower vibration is the suffering of emotion caused by ignorance. We make mistakes. We don't understand things. We feel separate and alone, which is the opposite of truth. The lack of knowledge causes suffering. How do we move out of a lack of knowledge? By learning. What are we learning? We're learning what life is. And because we discover ourselves in life, we're learning who we are. By participating in life, you observe, you witness, you notice cause and effect, and you start discovering truth. Learning about truth gives you knowledge. Knowledge raises your vibration. You feel happy every time you learn something new. You feel expanded in more knowledge. You feel more connected to life because you understand it more. You feel a greater amount of happiness and a higher vibration of happiness. The awakening process is the learning process. Participating in life is how you awaken. The design of life has always been perfect. It truly has. Just by observing what's happening, you're going to learn and grow. How do we build knowledge? By trusting ourselves. You're building your knowledge, which means you have to trust your mind. You have to use your mind. Someone who's been confused doesn't trust what they're thinking. They don't trust what they're believing. They don't trust what they're seeing sometimes. So how can they build their own knowledge if they don't trust the knowledge they have? People stay confused and thus continue to suffer because without knowledge you make mistakes. When you make mistakes, you don't reach your goals. You don't satisfy your desires. Desires are pursuits of happiness. Without knowledge, you cannot effectively reach your goals. You cannot pursue your happiness. You cannot succeed. We look at human history, look way back at human history, and you will see that the human experience is based upon rising out of ignorance into wisdom, rising out of limitation into creative power, rising out of suffering into creative love. When we participate, the perfect design of this human reality, because it's all God's creation, wakes us up. So even those forces in the universe that are causing us suffering, they are not our enemies. They are our catalysts for growth. Even those human beings, even those souls having a human experience that are believing controlling other people is the source of happiness, even they are not evil and wrong. They are also our catalysts for awakening. That which causes you suffering becomes your motivation. It becomes your inspiration to awaken more. You see, the design of life is perfect. There is suffering in this world. There are human beings that want you to suffer because in their understanding, it means greater happiness for themselves. But they are not your enemies. They, dear ones, are souls helping you to learn and grow. So how can you become wiser by observing this experience? How can you use this experience to build a higher understanding which doesn't take you into hatred, but instead takes you into love? How can you use this world and every part of it to open your heart and open your mind into a higher state? It's like, dear one, criminals in your society. You have criminals and they purposefully cause harm to other human beings. There is a very important purpose of a criminal. You see, dear one, a soul trying to awaken sees the harm being caused by another criminal, and they understand their role to be more compassionate, possibly to be a teacher, But in order to help the situation of crime, they have to learn more. Maybe they have to learn more confidence in themselves. Maybe they have to learn how to connect with another soul, another human being, and share creative energy together. You see, we're challenged by these different challenging experiences in society. The appearance of a criminal is not something to be punished. It's something to be embraced with gratitude. Here's an opportunity for myself to awaken to a greater state of myself. So how can I bring this soul into greater wisdom as well? How can I help this soul understand a higher way that gives this soul a genuinely higher emotional feeling? Now I've raised myself up greater because I had to learn and grow and cultivate new qualities of my own self, like confidence and compassion and wisdom, of course. And how can I help this soul grow? Because I want them to awaken more fully into these greater qualities of oneness. We don't understand the purpose of suffering, so we look at it and we complain about it, and we hate upon it. I hate this part of myself. I hate that my mind always is afraid. I hate that my mind is a coward. We do that to ourselves. Oh, I hate that person. I hate what they do. Why don't they just stop ruining my life? We do it to each other. In our own ignorance, we focus on that which we don't want, and we keep building suffering within ourselves. And then we carry that suffering with us even when we think about other things. Before we know it, our hatred becomes a plague which starts spreading around our life. Wisdom says, how can I benefit from the present moment? How can I become happier in every moment of my life? How can I become more loving in my experience? Wisdom challenges us because it invites us to live at a higher level. It invites us to remember the unity and to make ourselves greater. The purpose of suffering, dear ones, is to awaken. In every single one of its forms, it's here to awaken. Even the suffering of confusion, even the systematic confusion that is being created right now in this world, even that is here to help you awaken. Some might call it evil, but they are choosing low vibration. We call it an opportunity. How can I open my heart? How can I open my mind? But in order to benefit from this experience of suffering, I have to embrace it with my mind. I don't have to repeat the actions. Others will create the actions from their understanding. I'll create the actions from my understanding. Embracing it doesn't mean that I create it with my own expression. Embracing it means, how can I perceive it? And how can I allow my mind to learn from it? I'm not going to push it away. I'm not going to shun it. I'm not going to condemn it. I'm not going to separate myself from it. Instead, I'm going to look at it and accept this is part of my experience. This is part of my world. This is part of my life. I'm going to allow my mind to observe it so my mind can build a greater understanding of life. And as I observe suffering, automatically, I don't want to stay there. I want to move on to happiness. So automatically, my mind starts learning wisdom. Just by observing suffering and not pushing it away, not shunning it, not condemning it, just by letting myself observe the challenges of being human, I find myself growing and awakening in spirituality. The problem we have as human beings, we witness suffering and we think the way to get rid of suffering is to push it away. The way to get rid of a problem is to punish the problem, to harm the problem, to condemn the problem. In our human ignorance, we think that's the solution. But if we just open our eyes and look at human history, we realize no problem has ever been solved by punishing someone for it. When we punish a person, they don't learn, they don't change. They were trying to get happiness, and being a criminal was the only way they thought they could get happiness. That was the criminal's highest understanding at the time, to commit the crime. When we push that person away and shun them, they stay at that level of knowledge. They stay at the criminal level. This is why taking your criminals, those who have been arrested, and pushing them into a prison and shaming them and shunning them, pretending they don't exist, locking them away, that is why when they get released, they repeat the same behaviors. They never evolve to a higher understanding, at least some of them haven't. Right? Rejecting suffering doesn't work. It makes us uncomfortable to observe suffering, but that's exactly what we need to do. When we notice our own resistance to observing suffering, that's our sign that I have something more to learn. We should be able to stand here and observe life and stay connected to it until we awaken the wisdom that allows us to truly feel love for that part of life. That should be your measuring stick. That you can be with life on life's terms, just as it is, and you can genuinely understand it, and you can feel blissful love. Why do we have suffering? Because, dear one, it's what arises when God wants to experience more of what it is. In the beginning, there was one creation, and the creation knew itself as everything. It knew everything. There was no confusion, no ignorance, therefore no state of suffering. It was perfect bliss. And the universe existed as one experience. And then the universe wanted to know itself in more ways. God wanted to create more. The one became two, but both two were perfect. They knew each other as themselves, and they knew themselves as each other. They were still perceiving self and other, but they knew them to be the same. And then it multiplied, and it kept happening, and God realized itself in infinite ways. And every form and the consciousness within every form knew itself as everything else. There was perfection, perfect knowledge, perfect bliss. But then the universe desired more. It wanted to change its understanding and change its emotion. In the first layers of creation, it only changed its appearance. It changed the bodies, many consciousness bodies, many souls, but it didn't change knowledge. And then God wanted to change the knowledge, and now it created emotion. Now it changed the vibration each consciousness was feeling. And to do this, knowledge had to be hidden. It couldn't be removed because everything is God, but it could be hidden. God could choose to hide itself from itself. God can never be reduced. God can never be taken away. God can only hide. That's the illusion. That's the Maya. God hid itself from itself, and now you have different states of knowledge. And with different states of knowledge are different states of expression. And the emotion is what we are expressing. The emotion is the feeling of knowledge, the energy of our understanding in motion, being expressed. Emotion, energy that is moving. The understanding we have then also expresses through action. The universe got more complicated, we developed words and language and so on. But ultimately, it's our understanding of what we're perceiving. It's the knowledge of the bodies we're perceiving, of the forms we're perceiving, that determines the experience we're having. The vibration of the emotion is the expression of that knowledge. The higher we are in knowledge, the higher in blissful happiness we feel. This is why we have often told you, if you're looking for spiritual teachers or you're looking for a path in your life, choose it based upon happiness. Choose it based upon love. The greatest happiness is the strongest desire, and that's the blissful love. That's the unity experience. Those who understand more are happier. Many people have words, many people have stories, but that's not knowledge, that's just concepts. Knowledge is what you know. Concepts are what you memorize and speak out as theories. When you know something, you feel it, you live it. It's your vibrational reality. Emotion, dear one, doesn't lie. Words can lie because words are concepts, they're symbols, they're sounds, they're reference points, they're information. But blissful love, that is different. Feeling is genuine. God has hidden itself within this great big universe to give itself a more complex experience. To do this, there must be ignorance, there must be suffering. That is the purpose. So God can know itself in more ways. Why do we get stuck in repeated states of suffering? Because we don't understand the design, because we haven't observed the design and built our knowledge about the design further enough along. Therefore, our wisdom is not fully developed, so we still experience limitation and personal suffering. How do we get out of suffering? By learning, by ourselves participating in learning. Why do we struggle learning? Because we don't trust ourselves. Why don't we trust ourselves? Because the world taught us to not trust ourselves. Why is this all happening? Because this is the journey of awakening. You forget so that you can remember. How do we judge our progress? By watching our emotional feelings. The more knowledge you have, the stronger your state of happiness. It's not about how happy you say you are, it's about how you feel yourself to be. Everyone has a reference point, but yours is unique. Observe your reference point and move it in the direction of higher vibration. Don't compare yourselves to others, instead be your own best self. The suffering in this world is offering you an opportunity to awaken to more wisdom, because when you awaken to the fullest wisdom, you no longer suffer, you see everything as God. You see the criminal as God, and you see the saint as God, and you see yourself as God. This is why we have to observe the criminal. This is why we have to observe those who are trying to cause us harm. We look upon them and understand who they are, and if we know them truly as God, then we truly feel bliss while we observe God in all of God's forms. Then we are at that highest state of realization again. This is why you cannot push away. This is why you cannot condemn. This is why you cannot punish out of a feeling of removal and rejection. You can educate. You can reform. You can separate away someone who's knowingly and wanting to cause harm to others so that you can give them a correct environment where reform can happen. We're not saying let your criminals run wild, no. We're saying if you take a caring, heart-centered interest in them, you'll learn how to work with them in the way that helps them the best. And that does not include letting them continue to cause their crimes. Crimes that go unresponded to are crimes that continue to happen, and those are souls that continue to act in ignorance. They do not learn. Pretending something is happening, ignoring something is happening, does not cause the solution. You must act and understand that this is not acceptable behavior because it's harming the rest of us, but we're not shaming you, we're addressing you, we're loving you, we're caring for you, and we're realizing that you want greater happiness, but your level of knowledge is causing you to harm others to get your happiness. Here, let's help you understand a higher way, because we've all learned higher ways to work together. We've learned greater states of happiness through cooperation. We don't shame, we don't punish, we don't desire to cause harm to another because it makes us feel okay inside. Instead, we take a heart-centered, invested interest, and we help guide those to understand more. Suffering is a very important part of this world, hugely important. It challenges all of us. When we learn to embrace everything just as it is, be strong enough to perceive things as they are, then we're able to develop our own sense of knowledge. Remember, dear ones, you must trust yourself. It doesn't mean you're always right. It doesn't even mean that you're partially right. Sometimes your understanding can be very incorrect. very limited. And that's okay. You're learning and you're growing. Don't shame yourself and don't reject yourself. Instead, embrace yourself and work with yourself to grow stronger. We're all learning and growing. Trusting yourself doesn't mean you believe you're right. It means you can be real with your experience. And as you observe your reality, you'll see the ways that you can learn and grow and the ways you can awaken in this world. You work on those, trusting your inner guidance, trusting the cause and effect you're perceiving, and we guarantee you will move towards your enlightenment. Now notice what we talked about, dear ones. We didn't tell you to get enlightened, you have to go sit yourself in a cave or take vows and live as a monk. Sometimes there's great value in separating yourself away from society. Maybe that's the path that you think is going to help you most right now. You can express yourself in so many different ways, but what needs to happen in any way of expression is the desire to be with life and to cultivate a higher understanding. You have to, dear one, be evolving yourself as you live. That's the awakening process. And if you trust your inner guidance, it'll guide you through this journey. We've given you so many teachings, so many ways to support. We have lots of videos that help you understand how to connect to your higher self, how to awaken this inner guidance. So please explore these so you can learn to open that heart energy, because remember, that's the original knowledge and bliss. The more you go into your heart and discover that which is creating you, the more that knowledge of oneness and blissful love energy starts to broadcast into your world. You start giving the highest understanding of unity into your life. We learn by approaching the world. We've talked about this a lot here today, working with criminals, working with cause and effect, trusting your knowledge, and so on. We learn in that direction, myself out to the world, but we also learn in the inner direction, myself into my heart. As you go into your spiritual heart, you go back to the energy creating you. And the deeper you go within, the more you experience that unity knowledge and that unity love. Go within to God and see God all around you. This dear one will help you ascend in the greatest of ways. We know we've given you a lot of concepts and a lot of information. We've tried to repeat it a number of times so your mind can understand these complex ideas. Look at this again, review this information. It'll make it so very simple. You are here to evolve yourselves. You really, truly are. The evolution is into a state of wisdom, and we know we're getting wiser because we feel more happiness within. We're here to live a total experience, to share it in every moment. When we watch ourselves moving into lower vibration, oftentimes we see that we're just focusing on what we don't want and reinforcing it. We're complaining, we're hating something, we're just focusing on the negative. Immediately catch yourself doing it, focus back on the positive, that which takes you to higher vibration. Correct that pattern and you'll be smooth sailing from there on out, because all your energy will go in the direction of growth and happiness. We thank you, dear ones, so much for this opportunity to share ourselves with you. We wish you love and light and peace and happiness as you continue to create your journey. Namaste. Thank you, everyone, for joining together for tonight's Satsang with the Self. I hope that you enjoyed the topic and the communication that came through. As the Higher Self said, it was a pretty complex answer to a simple question, but they wanted the answer to be very specific. So a lot of detail was given. It might be beneficial for you to listen to the audio recording or the Zoom recording again, and even write down things. Oftentimes people find it very effective to take some notes and write down some things the Higher Self has said, because then it helps us to apply it in our lives. Remember, you're the creator of your reality. What you focus upon is where your creative energy goes. So be discerning about where you're focusing your awareness, about where you're focusing your mind, about what ideas you're focusing your mind upon, what ideas you're thinking about. You're a multi-dimensional creator, so be that authority choosing what you think about, what you feel, and what you speak and what you do. Have a beautiful evening, everyone. Lots of love. Thank you for attending, and I'll see you all again very soon.